Lila Galustian. You know me as Lily. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and welcome to Ask a Therapist. Tell us about you. Who are you?
My name is Paul Nicholson. I'm an actor, and I know you meet a lot of those out here in LA, but yeah, it's a little about me.
All right. Where'd you come from?
Okay, that's a longer story. So I was born in Russia, when my dad was working at the time, and my mom's from there. And then we moved to China, and then South Africa, then back to China, and then we moved to the States finally when I was 13. But
Wow.
yeah. So.
And when you guys moved, did you move straight to LA?
No, we moved to Connecticut and went there basically through high school, then college in New York, and then my senior year is when COVID hit, and then after that I was like, LA. So
LA's a place to be.
yeah.
I love this. So you've been around many cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when like you're going through development
Mhm.
and like being around so many different cultures, because cultures have different rules, different behaviors, different ways of thinking, different ways of surviving.
What was funny was when I came out here, and then like a year and a half in, I went to acting school out here, and the acting school specifically was like mostly international kids, and like that I felt much more at home than high school, college, or anyone else, like, which was generally American, and like I was like, huh, interesting. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
Now that because you're an international person, technically speaking.
Yeah.
So out of all the cultures, which one would you say is like one of your favorites?
You know, they're like I love all of them, but Russian culture for me like was something like really special, and I know how weird that sounds because I remember in 8th grade, like I was talking with my principal, like he was getting to know me, and then he found all this out about me, and then he's like, and I told him, because my grandparents are Russian, I went back to visit them every summer.
Yeah.
And but he was like, and it's safe, like it's, and I was like, but to me, I'm like in 8th grade, it's like, yeah, what's it like when you visit your grandparents? Like I don't know, but yeah,
so
but
Russian.
but the culture and like the people like that like was really special to me.
Yeah, because for me, like I moved to Iran when I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved from LA to Iran when I was 7. We moved back when I was 13. And then I moved to Armenia for my bachelor's degree when I was like going into 19, so right after high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Armenia by myself. And Armenia was around the time where it was like 2005, so it was still coming back to developing after being a part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of Russian
Mm-hmm.
like influences. And a lot of people always ask me about Iran because I
Mm-hmm.
used to go to Iran every summer and my grandparents were there. I love Iran. Iran is one of my favorite places. Not the political part of it.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Same for Russia.
Yeah, especially as a woman, I do not want to live in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the culture. I love the people. And Armenia, too. It's such a, and I don't know, I'm sure, because Russian culture is very much so influenced in the Armenian culture. They are, in a sense, from my perspective, one thing that I loved about it is they really are no bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
They really are no bullshit, but also in such a weirdly loving way, you know?
Yeah.
Which it's funny, in therapy, when I work with kids that are from different cultures, especially from Russia, it's such a different transition of them being American versus having to adjust to their family system and their family origin. And a lot of times it's like common where kids start judging their culture because like the American way is nothing close to that. And a lot of my work with kids that are like in that confused place is like, oh, your culture is beautiful.
Yeah.
No culture is perfect.
But also like the perception like of Russian culture or like Armenian culture and like that being so different than like what the reality is.
Yeah.
Like even just like language, like to me Russian is such a beautiful and like romantic language in a sense, but people are like just associating with like the very like strict, stern, like Soviet type, and it's like, well, that was not my experience at all.
Yeah, it's true, and they're very artistic.
Yeah,
art is such a big concept in Russia. people judge the Persian, and that's the thing. I think one of the things, at least in the U.S., it's all perception, right? The human brain is what you tell it to perceive, it'll imagine, and if it doesn't go check the facts, like if you've never actually been to Russia or Iran and never actually spent some time with the people in the country, your view of it is what they want you to believe it is.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change, right? And so I think that's one of the disservices that happen in the U.S., in different parts of the world,
Sure.
I would say. They kind of use the political perception as how the people in the country live and exist and are. Where it's like, no, actually, ballet came from Russia. It's one of the most beautiful art forms that a human can kind of do. I love it more than acting. It's their body, it's pure art, like, right? Orchestra, opera, like all of these beautiful ways of therapeutic healing and like visual understanding and grieving or dealing with life. It's these countries that came from it.
Yeah, but even like the modern like schools of acting, like, and the idea of like method, it came from Stanislavski, who's also like it's Russian, and like like
That's very true, actually. You are 1,000% correct. My husband talks about that all the time. Yeah, I think it's so interesting. It does make me sad because part of our society is judging other cultures, right? It's kind of like which is part of the unhealthy part of our society. It's like if it's not the American way, and if it's not what you're seeing that the Americans want it to be, then it's not good. And it's something that you get to judge and look down on, and it's bad. But like for Iran, like one of the things I love my Persian side and my Iranian side so much. It's like the part of my culture that I really love, because when I read more and more into the history and how the culture is and was a lot more so back in the day, like Persian Empire was like, they had this saying that they would say, think good, do good, and be good, which is like, for me, it makes so much sense because like the type of therapy I do is cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like from your thoughts. And it always says your thoughts play a role in how you feel and your emotions play a role in how you behave. So if you think good thoughts and you think positive thoughts, it'll help with the emotion of it, which then you'll start being a better person. And that was like the saying that everyone lived by during this time in the Persian Empire, which was think good, then you'll do good and you'll be good. And that's kind of the way. And I'm like, that still is common sense right now, using scientific facts like cognitive behavioral therapy. If you think good, you'll be good. You'll do good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like we started talking a little bit offline, but like growing up, because I mentioned my mom's from Russia. My dad was born like just outside of Philly, and kind of like, he's American, raised here his whole life, but in that sense, like neither of them really were, not they were opponents of like therapy or like psychology, but like it wasn't really talked about much in our house and like growing up. And so like it's interesting like how that's culturally, there are things that do translate though across like the spectrum as well. But,
Totally. In our household, like, listen, I'm a marriage and family therapist, a master's degree of marriage and family therapy. My brother's a master's degree of social work. My sister-in-law is also a master's degree of social work. And if I talked to my parents or anyone about therapy, you might want to go through therapy. Like, there's grieving that happened. It was a bad time. Like, you might want to talk to someone. It's like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, those two don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, culturally, there are many, many cultures. There are a lot of cultures. Right now in this time, it's actually interesting. There's some South American cultures that are taking liking to therapy, which I find that very interesting. And I think it's like the younger generation that's that. But there's a lot of still, like in Armenia. I don't know about Russia and how.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like more and more like over the last like 10 years, like I've like become more distant from like my family over there. So like I can't tell you either. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, same thing with my I think my parents would always be like, oh yeah, and like if someone's talking about going through therapy, like yeah, you go through your own journey, whatever you need.
Yeah.
But if you then flip it around and put it like, have you ever thought? It's like, no, I don't.
I don't
There's
need
nothing
you.
wrong with me. It's
Well, you know, there's two truths in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's really two truths. And one of the things that I always tell people, because people ask me, one of the reasons I thought of doing this podcast is because I walk around streets and people ask me questions all the time. And one of the questions is like, why should someone go to therapy? When should someone go to therapy? Right? And a lot of times I'm like, listen, there's two things. One, if there's like no consequences or things that aren't really like, your life is not being flipped inside out, like your family system is not unhappy with you, you're doing fine at work, things are going well, like yes, you're a human with flaws, everyone's development causes some things, whether we like it or not. Some of us avoid them, and if you can avoid them without it affecting your life every single day, and you don't really want to face it, who am I to tell you that you have to?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who am I to judge it and think it's unhealthy and you should? Which, if they're your children, they might, because children are a little bit judgmental of parents sometimes, right? We push them to be better. And from the outside, when they ask me, I'm like, if it's not a problem in your life, like if you and your wife are happy
Mm-hmm.
and you're living your life, and yeah, you're gonna have moments of like things that you're like little tweaks that your wife knows comes from your childhood,
Mm-hmm.
right, or your partner, then who am I to force you to go into it? If you ever feel like you want to like understand it a little bit more and are like, you know what, I'm unhappy with it, sure, I would recommend therapy. Therapy is a great place to learn what happened, how it affected you, and how to change it if you want to. And there are many people that are like very unhealthy, and they are affecting people's lives moving forward, right? They are hurting people. Their children don't want to talk to them. They're not able to keep up with jobs, or they're able to keep up with jobs, but their social relationships are just like not great. And those are the people where I'm like, listen, you keep complaining that your children don't like you. You keep complaining that people are mad at you and people are annoyed with you and they don't like X, Y, and Z. And people keep giving you the same advice over and over and over again of what you need to do better. You are a person that can't say, why would I go to therapy? Like, that person is the person where I'd say, I'm not going to force you to go into therapy, but it seems like it's affecting your life. So you might want to start going to a therapist and figure out what you can do to look at yourself and be better. So those two truths are so, and it's interesting because there's so many people that they know how to deal with whatever life experiences they've had, and it's not a problem in their life, right? So I don't know if your family is whichever one, nor am I going to ask, but those are the two that I'm always like, sometimes people don't need to go to therapy.
So then, I guess this is the thing I'm thinking about then. So the people that then, maybe there isn't something so outwardly that like is wrong with them, or they don't, things seem fine, but like, is there still something like slight that you can see that like therapy would be helpful in that sense, like for them, like where it's more like something internal they're carrying? Or
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And one of the things that I say is our development, no matter how perfect, as a kid, as you're experiencing life, you're taking in information, and there's certain experiences that all our experiences create coping mechanisms in day-to-day living, and our perception of the world and our perceptions of ourselves, right? So there are always going to be things within us that got affected. And if we kind of look at it, sometimes the way we talk to ourselves, or the way we motivate ourselves, or the way we see the love that we're coming in, and it's not as accurate as it actually is. And there are these little things that from childhood, you got influenced. you build coping mechanisms to survive. Like one of the things that I use as an example, so from like 0 to 7, I lived in the U.S., right? And I played on the streets. I was free. I went to school. I did all these things. And then at the age of 7, I like moved from here to Iran. And the way it was told is like, we're going to go visit your grandparents. So that's like something exciting. Grandparents that I haven't really met or have met that I don't remember. And I walk into this country, and this is one of the clearest memories I have, where I walk in to the airport and it's like asphalt everywhere and pictures of these soldiers everywhere. And then I keep walking, and there's like these glass windows, and there's a bunch of women on one side and a bunch of men on the other side, and they're like squished to the glass. And so like I'm kind of walking like, what the what is this? That first experience is still something where I'm like, from what I understand in myself now, I learned how to read people's body language to be able to understand how to behave, because I didn't speak the language. I didn't know these people. I didn't know this culture. This was a very different culture from where I grew up, right? Like nothing even close to, like at the age of 12, I had to start covering myself. My mom kept cutting my hair like a little boy, so I didn't, because I was like, I don't want to wear this. And my mom's like, well, you're a tomboy anyway, so we're just going to cut your hair like a little boy. We're going to make this happen for you. Until I was 13, and I was like, yeah, kind of have to. I'm starting to develop, which at that point, my mom was like, it's okay. We're going back home. So you're fine. So these little things, like positive-wise, I'm a great therapist because of it. I can read body language. Also going to Armenia, I had to like use that skill set again. And then another part of it, that's the negative part that I have to kind of notice and control, is that I read into so many things, right? Like naturally, like as I'm walking, I love people watching, but then sometimes I'm like reading into every people's body language and behavior. And I'm like, Lily, that's a little too much entertainment for you. Like, you know what I mean? So there's like all these things that can be good things, and also there are negative aspects to our coping mechanisms that we've developed in our lifetime in like little minor experiences. Like I had a teacher that told me I wasn't smart enough. Don't know why she thought it was nice to tell me that, but that thought carried out for a very long time with me. And it really, really played a big role all through high school, all through college, and then finally getting to my master's program. And that's when one of my teachers, because it was a psychology master program, was like, all right, we need to teach you cognitive behavioral therapy because you keep repeating something that's not even close to true because the teacher told you that once.
Yeah, and like with all the positive feedback I imagine been getting through that period, but like still it's the like that like the one that like lingers and like stays with you.
Yeah, because no matter how much from the outside people are telling you that it's not true, you don't believe it and feel it. You believe and feel what you're so used to telling yourself. So until you don't start changing and being able to, like, with cognitive behavioral therapy, it was literally like starting to gather information of like, okay, what goes against this thought that I'm not smart enough? And then what's the evidence that this thought is even true? What's the evidence that I'm not smart enough? And if a friend was, so it's all these Socratic questions that you have to start asking yourself, and you have to start repeating it, and then you come up with a new thought. So every time that thought comes, you have to bring in the new thought, and so your brain kind of starts rewiring the old habit with a new habit, with a new thought. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think anyone can benefit. And then there are people that love to just overly psychoanalyze themselves. And I'm like, don't do that. Don't drive yourself crazy. Don't try to like create problems inside yourself.
Like, can you give like a hypothetical example? Like
Psychoanalytic therapy is very, very helpful in so many ways. And then there's psychoanalytic for people that like they have to go to therapy 4 days a week. And they go to therapy 4 days a week and they dig into everything and they try to like understand every aspect of their existence connected to their mom and dad, even aspects that don't affect them or aspects that aren't even present in their life right now. And for a time frame, usually, and I'm not that educated in psychoanalytic, it's not really my scope of practice or my scope of competence. And the way I see it is you're going every single day trying to find things to talk about, trying to find ways that your experiences growing up have hurt you and affected you, or helped you and affected you, whichever way. And you do it for 15 years, 4 days a week. In my mind, as a behavioral therapist, I'm like, why? Why? Why not go spend that hour having lunch with your friend?
Yeah.
Like, why not go spend that hour 4 days a week? Go to the park, read a book, like go to the beach, put your foot in the water. Like, why keep going and trying to find something inside of you to understand? Because sometimes you don't need to find something inside of you. Sometimes, like even with therapy, a lot of times with my patients, I'm like, when you come in and we work on the thing that we've worked on, the goal that you wanted to achieve. And for me, I work with personality disorders. So when you start like reducing your symptoms of having this personality disorder and your life is actually starting to look much better and you're feeling more comfortable and confident in handling things, stop coming.
Yeah.
Go live life and go experience life more. And trust me, in life, you're gonna feel the chaos again. And you're going to feel like you need help again. And when you do, give me a call. But don't keep coming trying to find something wrong with you. Because from a cognitive behavioral therapy, if you're trying to find something wrong with you, your brain is the smartest and dumbest organ. The more you say, let me think of what's wrong with me, you're going to create something that's wrong with you that wasn't even there before.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's that sense of like you have to trust the work that you're doing. But rewiring from like the mindset of just like, well, if I can just figure out this one thing and then it just clicks and then but I haven't quite figured out that click yet, and you just keep trying to chase it and like continuously, and then you get stuck in that sort of loop as well.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people get stuck in that loop. And then that's the thing, where getting stuck in that loop becomes, especially if you go to therapy, you're like in this like you want an introspective place, right? You're in a self-introspective place, which means you are judging yourself a little bit, trying to figure out what you can do better. Judging yourself is not the healthiest thing. We don't want to constantly teach ourselves to judge ourselves. And yes, we want to be better versions of ourselves. There's no doubt about that. And judging ourselves doesn't help us become better. Right? So when you're in this loop of like stuckness, and the stuckness comes with more frustration, the more you feel an emotion, the more your thoughts become irrational. So the higher that emotion, the more irrational thought you're going to have, right?
Yeah. So
if you're in this loop of therapy where you're not figuring out what the problem is, but you're like, I know there's a problem, you're getting frustrated. Now you're at a 7 out of 10 frustration, which is like, in a sense, fight, flight, and freeze. You're getting into that. And then now you're like judging yourself so irrationally that now you're trying to problem solve impulsively on how to fix yourself, which is the worst thing to do, right? Like, I'd rather you not fix yourself and just stop and back off and let yourself regulate and give yourself time for experiences to come up for you to realize what is the actual problem, instead of trying to protect yourself from a possible problem that's going to happen. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's so many times people come to therapy, they call me and they're like, you're a behavioral therapist. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, I want to change a behavior. I'm like, okay, what is the behavior? Well, I went to therapy. I was in therapy for 10 years and I was able to work on X, Y, and Z. But I think there's something more that I need to figure out. And I'm like, I'm not that therapist for you. I'm definitely not the therapist for you. And they're like, okay, but they said that you're the best when it comes to this. And I'm like, Yeah, when there's an actual problem, you come to me. You don't come to me to find a problem. If you want to find a problem, you go to psychoanalytic and psychodynamic. They will find problems for you. But for me, I'd rather not have you repeat the thought, I have a problem that I don't know how to fix. Because from a behavioral standpoint, I have a problem I don't know how to fix creates an emotion and will create a behavior that's not really a healthy pattern. So I'd rather not engage in that.
Yeah.
But I can help you stop saying that if that's what you want. But yeah, it's interesting. There are a lot of people I have to reject from therapy. It happens a lot more often. Have you ever gone?
A couple times, but like moving around a lot and everything. I don't know, like, and this has only shifted for me recently, but like I always felt a sense of like everything's kind of impermanent in a sense, and like I'm always going to just pack up and move on to the next thing. And I think I was trying out therapy in college a little bit, but then I was like, I'm about to graduate, then I'll move to God knows where, so I'll just push it to down the road, but like, just never really, I don't know. Yeah.
That's actually interesting. I love that you mentioned that. That thought is connected to your childhood and moving around, obviously. Yeah. You know that. Yeah. Do you think there's a point where, because for me, when that thought would come up was every 7 years, weirdly. I actually noticed a pattern because every 7 years I moved. It was kind of, my brain kind of already knew that. And every 7 years, it was like, where do I want to go now? And then I'd be like, why do I want to go somewhere? Like, why am I trying to move?
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of my master's program. Where would I go? Has it ever, like, have you ever thought, I'm not planning on moving anywhere with this feeling of, like, I'm a mover, I'm going to move anywhere?
So it's funny because I just realized this the other day was because my parents have they've lived in the same house for like, I think it's close to 15 years now. But we moved to China, lived there for 6.5 years. Then we moved. It was a year before we moved again. Then 2.5 years. Then like 4 or 5 years. But then I moved to college, and then 4 years there. And I think it's just been 4 years since I got to LA. And I've been having the thought again of like, because I've been thinking about grad school and different things. I was like, do I want to stay out here? Maybe somewhere else, maybe New York, different things. And while at the same time, I do feel like I've developed roots a bit more than I ever have before, in a sense. There is the thought of now, like, okay, well, maybe what's next? A little bit is kind of the thought process, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And are you actually giving into that what's next, or is there a part of you that's like, I like the roots that I've set up here?
Bit of both. My wife noticed this. Like, I'm even in that sense of like constantly moving. I do like to have some like permanent and like habit. Like, I go to the same restaurant like on my days off every day for like the last 3 years, just because it's like, and I'm like, well, do you want to try something? It's like, not really. I just want to go there and order the same thing I do every time.
Consistency is something you like.
Yeah, which maybe, I don't know if it's because I lacked it in a certain sense growing up, but certainly friendships, that I felt that was a tough part for me growing up, just because I was like, well, however long this person's in my life, is it really worth getting attached and seeing where this, like, or because it's just gonna whatever and then move on. But so I've kind of moved past that lately, I felt, and like I've in that part of it, I've enjoyed kind of developing roots and stuff.
I love that, and I think that's where it sounds like you're getting more comfortable with not feeling worried that you're going to lose someone, I guess, is the way to describe it. You're a lot more like, no, my friends are going to stick around.
There's a show that was on HBO. It was the show version of Time Traveler's Wife. And there's just like a quote in it, which is, or like the question was, you know, how do people like get together or something? Because it's not in a friendship sense, but it's talking in that sense.
Yeah.
And the answer to it was like, they don't. They just get together for a little while, and that's okay. And so in that sense, like, okay, if it's impermanent, if it's not forever, that's okay, but you still get the present moment, which is like better than nothing. So
I agree.
kind of accepting that as the mentality has kind of shifted for me, I feel.
I love that. That's a beautiful mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing everything to exist in the present moment, which I'm a big believer of that personally, because I've had many friends that have come and gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's like one of the natural things in life. There are some people, and there's a lot of people who make friends from like early childhood, and that friend sticks around, and that's a beautiful thing, and that's not common. It's not the common theme. Just like finding like the love of your life in middle school,
Yeah.
it's not common, right? It's beautiful. Whoever gets it, you're so lucky. We love that for you. But there's a lot of like a lot of kids that come into my office a lot of times, and they're like, I can't keep friends. And I'm like, well, you friends are gonna come and go, like it's not, it's
Yeah.
you enjoy the friendship in the present moment. You enjoy what that friendship brings for you, and you don't know what's going to happen with this friendship, just like you don't know what's going to happen with any person crossing your path. Even with my husband, sometimes I'm like, I love you, I want to be with you for the rest of my life, and this is going into our second year of marriage, and I don't want that to change ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I really can't predict the future. I can't say what our life is going to look like. I can't say anything.
Yeah.
Right? I can just do what I can do in the present moment and try my best to keep this relationship as healthy and happy as possible in the present moment. And that's with everybody. It's with family, it's with friends, it's with the partner in front of you. The present moment is what matters more than anything. And then there's a lot of times where it's my favorite thing to tell people is when they're like assuming, when people go into assuming what another person is thinking about them, which is such a common thing. Every human does this, right? Like so many times people are like, do other people do this? Yes. Every human assumes what another person is thinking at times. And every single time the skill that I kind of teach people is, you don't know what's happening in another room. You have no clue what's happening outside of the room that you were sitting in. Nothing. I don't know what's happening in my house right now. I can make assumptions. My assumptions probably won't be true, but I'll think they'll true because I think that I know my husband and my dog better than but I have no clue what's happening in another room. So me causing stress in my own body and causing this narrative of what a person is thinking about me or saying about me in a room that I'm not even in this present moment, how's it helping me? What's it doing for me? If it's not doing anything, then you just got to breathe it out and just kind of visually push it away. And that's one of the things that I say with everything. Like, just try to stay in the present room every time you start going into like assuming things. And in your relationships, just like the philosophy you have, be in the present moment.
Which on one hand, like just us talking, I'm remembering when I moved to Connecticut, there was one of the first few people I met in school there. There was a friend of theirs they were talking about, and then like they've been friends since kindergarten. And like I remember that's I can't imagine what that's like that doesn't compute for me. And at the same time, it's like, well, that's probably not that common even among people who have like grown up in this town for like their whole lives. And but oddly enough, like I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and they're still friends with that person. It's like haunting me, like this like image. Like, okay, like these friendships are possible, but like
not for us. We travel too much. For us, we know how to have distant friendships. Like for me, I'm so good at distant relationships. Distant relationships, like my best friends don't live in the same country as me. One of my best friends lives in Sweden. The other best friend lives in Armenia. The other one lives in Dubai. Like none of my best friends live in this country with me. My closest and dearest friends live in this country, but my best friends who have seen all shapes and colors of me, the really ugly parts of me, they don't live here. And I've talked about this in my own therapy so many times, and I've analyzed myself so many times of like, why can't I just build like a friendship like that in the same city that I live in. Like, why does the distance feel comforting to me, in a sense? And the reality is, because from my childhood, my friends, like, I would make friends and then they would become my distant friends. And I would stay in touch with my friends. And actually, the one that lives in Dubai is one of my friends from Iran, that I reconnected with when I moved to Armenia. So it's like and I think that's the second part of, like, actually just coming to my mind. Like, that's a thing, like, that came up in my therapy sessions, right? That I am good with distant relationships, and I feel a sense of comfort in that. And I remember I asked my therapist, who I love my therapist. Anyone needs an amazing therapist in Sherman Oaks, Naseem Sanani is amazing. I'll put her name out there. But she asked me, I was like, does that mean something's wrong with me? And, like, this is a therapist asking another therapist, right? So we're also humans and normal human beings. And I was like, does that mean, like, is that, like, something that I should go into psychoanalytic and figure out, like, should I change that? Is that a bad thing? And she's like, since when is comfort a bad thing? Right? Yeah. And I was like, good point.
Yeah.
So it really, then I was like, you know what? No, it's not. It doesn't negatively impact me in any shape or form. Those are my best friends that through the roughest time, like, I can call in the middle of the night, which for our middle of the night is their daytime anyways. And they will answer and they will help me and they will be there for me, and the distance doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But again, for a little while, I was finding bad meaning in the comfort of me being able to have, like, distant friendships. And I think that's something we do a lot of times. We try to, like, we judge ourselves and find bad meaning in things.
Yeah. Would you say that those, like, friendships, like, solidified or, like, deepened, like, while you were more away, apart from each other, or, like, when you were in those same places at the same time?
I think so. Most of these friendships actually come from the time frame that I lived in Armenia. So it was, like, from 19 to 23, and it was interesting. They solidified during that time, but then got even more solidified when I moved away, and I'll explain why. Because during that time, I was alone. My family was miles and miles away, right? And their family was too, but their family lived in Iran, so Armenia and Iran's distance is much closer. For me to come from Armenia back to the U.S., it was like 24-hour flight, right? So I was, like, pretty much on my own. And my mom was there for me through the phone every day, and my brother was there for me every summer. He would show up. He would come to Armenia for basketball tournaments and other things. But, like, my family was always there for me, and I knew that, but they couldn't be there in the day-to-day stuff. And a lot of things happened in my life that were very painful things during that time. And my friends were there. My friends were kind of like my family. And we, like, financially had to figure out how to survive, because there were times where we overspent our money on going out and drinking, and then we didn't have money for 2 weeks, and we were like, fuck, we have to figure this out. There were, like, friends that passed that we had to be there for each other for. So during that time, I think we went through a lot of things together, good and bad, that we kind of learned how each person goes through good times and bad times. And then when I moved back to LA, the friendships didn't dissipate. And if I ever needed them, they were there. If they ever wanted me to be there, like my friend in Dubai, her first baby, she was like, can you come to Dubai? And I was like, you know what, I actually can make a pit stop in Dubai and then, you know, visit everyone in Armenia and then come back. So, like, I went to Dubai for 48 hours, was there for the birth of the baby, went to Armenia. There was another baby that was just born, and said hi to that one, and then came back within 4 days. And I was back at work by Tuesday morning. And I think we all made such an effort to make sure we knew that we were still always there for each other, even if I don't talk to them for 7, 8 months, which happens because we're all living our lives. Like things, they have children, I'm doing my own thing. None of them were able to come to the engagement party because they're in countries that really can't come here, which none of that mattered. Because I think that's the thing. The fact that our friendship didn't go anywhere because we all made sure we made an effort, and we all made sure, even if we were mad at each other, even if we were hurt by each other, because when there's a distance, you do imagine things that another person is doing that's hurting you. Like if someone's going through a hard time, and if they called me, for example, and I wasn't available, and then I had to call them back 3 days later, and this is not a real thing that happened, but it's like I'm sure it has happened actually, where my friends are like, she doesn't love me anymore, she doesn't care about me, she's not there for me during the time, and then I'm like, actually no, I did. You didn't tell me it was an emergency. You just said I need to talk, and I was like, I'll call you later. And so we go into these imaginations of what the other person did that hurt us, and then we realize not really true. So that's happened, and we've been able to talk through those, never judging the person for assuming that. And I think that's kind of why those relationships have lasted versus my friendships here. I have a handful of friends that are truly like my closest friends, but the other friends that haven't been able to last is because that honesty and that non-judgmental, that like safety and like knowing this friend is getting to know you, and they're going to know all parts of you, and they're going to accept that, and that's part of the friendship. I haven't been able to find that fully in LA.
LA's weird too, because by and large, like the people I run into LA, like very few are actually from here, and will also stay here. Like, and most of the friends I made in the beginning of my time here, like they've left. And,
that's true.
Which again goes back to that the impermanence and everything else, but like trying to accept your friends who they are and vice versa is tough.
I also think for men it's a little different.
Sure.
It really is, because women make a bigger effort to make phone calls. You guys are a lot more nonchalant. There's a difference in how we build friendships in our different species.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And you guys are a lot more like, if you're right here and you're my friend, and once in a while, like, I'll text you and we'll hang out, but like I'd rather sit on my couch and do the things that I do, and if you want to come over, sure. Versus we women are a lot more like, how are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on? You know, I think there is also, I've noticed that in growing up within, like, between the way my brother has his friends and my brother's one of those where he has friends from his like early childhood. Like he has friends from his time when we lived here, and he went to like preschool here, and at his wedding all of his friends, and we were like, how are you still friends with all these people? And he's just like, I just keep in touch. And I'm like, when? Because you're always watching sports. Like, when are you keeping in touch? But I guess here and there, through email, through MySpace, through all these different things, he was staying in touch with his friends. But it was always different, because it's like, men plan a night out and everyone comes together and they go out, and besides that, unless it's like a very, very close relationship where the person just shows up at your house, you guys don't call often.
Yeah, that's true. I don't even know if I am that much of like we all get together on a night out and we go out somewhere sort of thing, but I think my closest like friendship relationship was with my brother growing up, but like even with that, like on the phone, it's very just like, and like a lot of like long silences, just because like it's like, oh, you know, like whatever, and I'm just doing this thing, like cool, and like we don't talk much, and then time goes by, and then you have another phone call like that, and it just keeps going on and on.
Which I think that's normal for siblings, personally, because that's kind of how I am with my brother. And I always tell people, I'm like, your siblings are your first best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. Whether you like them or not, they were your first best friends, and especially if you lived in the same house together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there's some siblings that don't live in the same house
Yeah.
together. But for me, my siblings, I have an older brother and an older sister, and I'm the baby of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother and my sister are 11 months apart to the day. So they were like very close. And then I came 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like their, in many ways, I make a joke and I say they bullied me a lot, but they didn't bully me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like my brother's WWE practice doll. and like when they wanted to pull pranks, they would come together. When they wanted to be mischievous, they would come together and plan something for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was the prank every single time. So like I have a lot of these memories where I'm like, you guys abused me. Really, you did. But I can't do anything but laugh because they were the best memories in my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
they were my fun memories. But because they were my best friends, they were the people that I would go cry to.
Yeah.
They're like when things happened in the house, they were the people that I would talk to. When things happened at school, they were the people that I would talk to. They always had my back from the beginning. So they were, and they still are, kind of my best friends. It's just my relationship with them looks different. It really is like conversations of like, hey, how you doing? Good. How's life? Good. How's your wife? Good.
Mm-hmm.
How are the kids? They're cool. Okay. How's your husband? Good. Cool. How's business? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, love you.
Like my best friend now, when she sees me interact with my like my brother and stuff, like it's she like looks at me because I'm the oldest in my house growing up, and she like can't wrap her mind around that. Like nothing about you gives oldest.
It really doesn't.
And on one hand, I'm like, well, what is that supposed to mean? But like when I think about it, like actually no, it makes sense because like me and my brother are 2 years and 6 days apart, like exactly.
Wow.
So, but it was like for me it felt like we were the same age and we just like bonded and just like that was our relationship. And,
yeah. That's actually kind of cute.
Mm-hmm.
It really is true. You don't give older brother vibes.
She's gonna give me so much shit when she hears that.
Coming from a therapist.
Yeah.
Because there's like all these studies that have done like different first kids and second kids and third kids and all of these like what the common themes are. And that doesn't always happen, which I explain this to a lot of parents that come in and they're like, well, like even this one, my second child is more like the oldest child, which is weird. Does that mean we've done something wrong? And I'm like, no, that does not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just part of a person's personality too. But yeah, my brother, growing up, everyone thought my sister was the oldest one. Everybody always, even till today, there are times where people are like our friends that have been in our lives for a very long time from like child. They're like, your sister's not the oldest one. And I'm like, no, man, she's the middle child.
Mm-hmm.
She's like the typical middle child too. And they're like, no, she's like more protective and like, and I'm like, yeah, she's the more protective one.
Mm-hmm.
Versus my brother, especially with me, my brother was never really that protective.
Mm-hmm.
I have this funny story that I always tell people. I'm like, when my brother and I used to go clubbing together, that age range where we were at the same time going clubbing together, we were at a bar somewhere, and this guy came and he was like hitting on me. And my brother's best friend looked at my brother. He's like, are you going to do something about that? And my brother turned around. He's like, if someone hits on Lily, I feel bad for them. Because if she's not interested, she'll make it very clear she's not interested. So I don't need to protect her from people at all. If you need her to protect you from people, ask her. She'll be good at it.
Yeah.
And so that's how not protective of me my brother has been my whole life. Versus my sister, on the other hand, very protective. Where there were times where I'd be like, dude, I can handle myself. I don't need you to talk for me. And she'd be like, no, I can do it. I need to speak up for you. I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't. I think sibling relationships are such interesting relationships because you do go through so many ups and downs together. It's a true best friend relationship. Thank thank you so much for coming to Ask a Therapist.
Yeah, it was good talking to you.
It was always a pleasure. Bye.